One was what makes a good test. One was binding of this with arrow functions versus non-arrow functions. And one was fetch, like sort of using your node script as a client for other APIs. Okay, so I am going to, let's tackle the testing one first. And Celeste is like, you're not doing mine, I'm out. Okay, so the testing one, what makes a good test? Yeah, Josh?
Makes a good database test,
not just a test, but what makes a good database test?
Is it good enough that you see your database test data, you know you run this query exactly what you're going to get out, you can just test like, say you're doing like a DB9, you get the array, you just test the values at those certain positions in the array, the object inside the array that gets passed back. Is that good enough, or is there a better test that you could be writing to test the results of that query?
Yeah, let me show you, just because I can, and the tests are a little bit complicated, but I was actually doing some database testing on my personal project this weekend, so let me just show you, let me answer you by showing you what I was doing. So in my Box Charter repository, we want to be looking at the Node Express React Redux. This is there. I've just done so many versions of this. Like, you know, I started by doing like Python Angular, and it just keeps like changing as I like want to work on different different technologies. So, so Node Express React Redux. So this is the branch that I'm working on currently. And let's go into server and test and DB. Okay, so let me just tell you basically what this project is about. So the idea is I want people to be able to enter chords and lyrics for different measures of a song, and for it to print out a nice chord chart for the song. For those of you who work with music and know chord charts, that's basically the idea. And so my database has sort of this hierarchy. It has the idea of a chart, and then within the chart can have sections, and then within the section you can have measures, and then each measure has chords and it has lyrics. That's sort of the hierarchy. And so if we look at, for example, my database here, we can look at my tables. There's a bunch of stuff about keys and scale notes because I want people to be able to transpose as well, but we'll just ignore that for now. So we have a chart, and the chart has an ID, of course, then has a title, an author, a composer, a lyricist, like being able to transpose the keys and some options for how you want it to print. Then we have sections, and each section has a chart ID. And it has an index within the chart, and it's got a name and blah, blah, blah. Then we have measures, and each measure has a measure ID. It's within a section ID. It's got an index within that section, and then it has this sort of beats per measure idea. Don't worry about repeats. And then each chord has a measure ID and all sorts of stuff. And then each lyric has a measure ID also. And lyrics have a verse index because you might have many verses, and chords have a beat index because you might have many chords in the measure. Am I losing you? Is this too complicated, or? All right, so, okay, so now let's go back and look at, the test. So inside my DB test, let's just look at this chord lyric test. Okay. Yeah, although interestingly, notice that this chord lyric test doesn't even require a cert. how on earth can you have a testing file that doesn't require, you know, assert or expect or whatever, right? Basically, all this is doing is this is setting up a bunch of tests. Setting up a chord with no suffix, a chord with a base note and no suffix, a chord with a suffix and no base note, a chord with a suffix and a base note. So I'm thinking of all like sort of the possible variations, right? And I just gave you know, and then I made these chord objects. And then I have the lyrics, and, you know, lyrics basically are much simpler than chords. They can either have empty text or non-empty text. And then, so for each, and then I have fields that I'm checking for each of them. So for each, and then I have these add to DB success tests. And that is in this, where did I put that? So that's in my utilities add to DB tests. So go utilities and my add to DB tests. So here, so for every one of those options, and by the way, notice that I have like JSDoc for everything, right? That's my, so for every one of them, I am going to, like basically, I'm going to run the add item. There's a bunch of other stuff here, but basically I'm going to run the add item, which is adding, you know, whatever, that object to the database. And then I'm going to check that adding the object to the database returns a number, because I know that's supposed to return a type ID. And I'm also going to check that each of the fields is what I expect it to be. Each of the fields is what I expect it to be. You know, now that I'm looking at this, I think that this is more complicated than your answer needed. But so if I'm adding something, so let me summarize a little bit just in words. If I'm adding something to a database, I want to make sure that A, the function is returning what I expect it to return, and B, every field in the database, fields, you know, for that row is what I expect it to be. Fields that were not supposed to change, you know, should not have changed, and fields that were supposed to change should have changed. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, just a comment since we're on here, why did I make that so complicated? Like, it looks ridiculous, right? But now that I have all of that, it was very easy for me to test lyrics, because all I had to do was just put the lyrics in, you know, just make like the lyric examples. And then it's very easy for me to test measures. All I have to do is make the measure examples. This keeps me from having to repeat all sorts of tests. I found myself doing a lot of copying and pasting to like make all the tests the same. And if you ever find yourself doing a lot of copying and pasting, you are not taking advantage of your power as a programmer. You want to make sure that instead of copying and pasting, you're just reusing code. Okay. Okay, Celeste, I'm gonna punt on your this binding. I can talk to you privately about it later, because I think there is more broad interest in the fetch stuff. Okay, so, oh, and I'm not sharing my screen, so, sorry. Okay. So all of that was like even more confusing to people watching. All right, let's look. All right, so let's make an Express server. Can we do this in half an hour? Yes, we can. Okay. So we're going to make an Express server that uses the iTunes API. The iTunes API is my favorite one because it's dead simple. You just basically, give it a term and it'll give you JSON back. So, so for example, if I do search and I give it a term, and my term is Michael Jackson. I just used a %20 because that's the URL encoding for a space. And you hit return. It gave me a file because that's what my browser is set to do with JSON. And the file gave me a bunch of Michael Jackson songs in JSON. Okay, so let's make an Express app that allows a user to enter a term, and we will show them songs that match their term. Sound good? Can we do it in half an hour? Yes, we can. Okay. So let me make a new project. What should we call it? iTunes search. I don't want activity. I don't want to discover repositories. I just want my repos. Okay. So, I'm just making sure that all of my my ESLint stuff gets installed. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, let's just make some new folder or new files. So I'm going to make an app.js. I am going to make a views and, oop, not a file. I'm much faster on the command line. I think I've got my command line back. And so for the views, the first view is going to be index.html. And the second view, or no, not pug. And the second view is going to be songs.pug. And I'll move index.pug and songs.pug into views. Okay. So, cool. So now I am going to npm install, save. I'm going to install Express. I'm going to install Pug. Is there anything else I need to install? Node fetch. Anything else? Okay. So, all right, so now let's just make our Express server. So, const express equals require express, right? And then const, what else? I think I'm just going to do get for now, and I'm not going to do post. Yeah. I'm
curious about node fetch because when we were doing the Ajax thing the other day, you said that we didn't need to install anything to use fetch.
That is on the browser side. Here we're doing it on the client side. The browser side, the browser knows fetch. The browser engines know fetch. Node does not. If the browser is interpreting your code, no need to install it or reference it. If Node is interpreting your code, you need to.
At least this is part of what the confusion is.
Okay, so equals like that. And then on the bottom, we'll do app.listen. Is that right? And then what's that?
Yeah.
3,000, and then a callback. Okay, and actually, so in my package.json, my npm, my start is going to be node app, and my dev start is going to be nodemon app, right? .js. You have to do .js here. Okay. And then now I need to npm install save dev nodemon. Okay, so while that's working, all right, and so now let's make a route, app.use. Is that how I do it? And so this, I actually just want to render index, right? Is that how Pug works? I just have not used Pug enough. Set the view engine. How do we do that? App.use, like this? Like that? Do I have to interpret? Like that? Okay, thank you. Do I have to import render from Pug? Let's just look at a Pug quip start. Say that again? Res.render. Okay, clearly my my Express experience is tiny. Awesome. Thank you. I just want you guys to feel useful. Okay, so all right. And now if we do index.pug, title, okay, and we'll do a form, and the form will have a an input type equals text, and then it will also have a button, no, a submit, no, input type equals submit, and the form is going to have an action, and the action is going to go to a different route, results. Method by default is get. Nope. I ain't got time for that. We had half an hour to make this. Okay, let's test. So, all right.
It was npm run dev start.
Thank you. Okay, so far so good. Thanks to your wonderful syntax suggestions. Localhost 3000. Damn, we're good. Look at that. All right, so now what's going to happen if I do this? Yeah, we don't have a route called results. So now here's where the real fun starts. Okay. So first, as you guys have seen lately when I've been working on this, I like to do things in small pieces. So the first thing I think I'm going to do, let's just make a results page. And the first thing I'm going to do is just on the results page, I'm just going to print out whatever I got from my form. So on songs.pug, okay, and now how do I do it? How do I suggest that I need a variable here? Pound? Like this?
Yeah, pound and brackets, curly brackets.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right. And now I'm going to say, all right, so let's just see what we get here. And how are we going to get the term? How are we going to get the term from that form? Oh, well, first we need to give it a name.
Say, the search, you get the URL and then probably concatenate it with search term.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do eventually. But now I just want to make sure I can access the term that the person submitted. So how do I get that here? So I'm going to do a res.render. Now I'm going to do songs. And then I want to say term. And what am I going to give it? Like this? Do you guys have questions about where this came from? I'm not getting it from the body. I'm actually getting it from the get data. And the get data lives in request.params. When I submit this form, not that one, when I submit this form, it is going to populate request.params with the key term and the value of whatever the person put in this box. Okay, so let's check and see whether that worked for us. Okay, so NodeMon did its magic. Now let's submit again. Okay, so we're close. We got songs 4, but it doesn't seem to be replacing. So let's see what our problem is. I'm going to just console log rec.params just to see what it looks like. The other thing that I want to look for, yeah, notice that it actually doesn't actually have anything here. So my form didn't really work. Do I need to do a method equals get? Maybe I do in this weird world of Express. Celeste is scowling. Oh, you know what? I need to reload this page. What's that? Yeah, I need to reload this page because I didn't reload this page since I gave that box a name. I had made a change where I had given this input a name, and I hadn't reloaded the page since I did that. This is super important. Otherwise, it doesn't know what to call the stuff in this box. So let's try that again. Okay, better. Now we've got term equals Michael Jackson. So now we've got another disconnect. Let's see. Request.params doesn't have anything in it. Why not? Request.query. It's because we use request.query. Request.params is when you have a URL param. Request.query. My apologies. I'm clearly my Express syntax. What's that? So a query. So let me just make sure that this works, and then I will explain by what I find empirically. So let's do this again. Okay, so that works. Okay, so let's do. Okay, so params is okay. So now if I did results / Jonathan like this, and we looked, the query gave me the get stuff, and the params gave me the thing that was in the URL. Okay, so we can remove this. We can remove this. Okay, so now I'd say we're doing pretty good. This, by the way, is a good time to do a commit. Let's do a git ignore. So I don't commit my node modules, and just in case, I always put that in. And now let's do a git add app, package, star, and views. So my message is going to be create basic Express app and form with hug. Okay. All right. So now I've got that committed. So 4509 insertions. That seems like an awful lot. I guess it's because my package.json is long. All right. So now let's actually do the fetch. So here, what we don't really want to render songs with this. Well, maybe we do want the term, but we're also going to want the songs, and so I'm going to make a songs array. All right, but first I need to use the fetch. So I'm going to say fetch, and my URL. I'm going to say const URL equals, and so my URL is going to be this, and then it's going to be term equals, and we'll put in search term URL escaped. URL escaped is really important. If you have any special characters in your search term, like slashes or question marks or ampersands, you want to make sure they get URL escaped. So, so search term URL escaped is going to be, and actually, is going to be my term, and I need to be able to URL escape my term. So let's learn how to do that in JavaScript. So node URL escape, or sorry, URL encode. That's another way to say it. All right, so it looks like I've looked at this URL encode before. So I'm going to install it, and then I'm going to require it, and then I'm going to URL encode. So let's let's do this, and then we'll play around with it a little bit just to get some sense of it. So first, I'm going to install it. Let's save it. While that's working, I'm just going to do and then down here, I'm going to say okay. So let's do node. And now let's just do things like URL encode Michael Jackson. Ah, it takes that space and turns it into a %20. Let's URL encode Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. Ah, all the spaces become %20s, and that ands becomes a %26. So basically, it's just taking whatever my term is and making it safe for URL. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have this escaped term, and now it's upset because this wasn't a template literal, and I hate it when you do that. Okay, all right. So now URL, comma, and then we have our callback, right? Or do we do a .then? I think we do a .then. And this one, I want to get the JSON. And then I want to say, and then I actually think I'm going to do songs like this. And the songs is going to be ugly, but I don't care right now. And so in here now, I'm going to, hey, my pug person back there, how do I iterate over songs here? Like that? What's that? I think it's track name. That's just because I know. Oh, and actually, if we go back here, we actually have to do results because it's an object. Results is the list of songs. So let's go back here and because songs is this whole object. And what I really want is this list of results. That is a list of objects, including track name somewhere. I've just used this so much that I know. Okay. Oh. Okay. So, questions on any of this? I know I'm going pretty fast. I didn't have a lot of time.
So to use the fetch in a route, like, so that route is just actually, you're actually getting data from another server and rendering on your page in the same route.
And if this were a real production app, especially for testing purposes, I would separate this out into another function. Nobody got
So
time for that.
If you did, because I had mine like that. I broke out my fetch into a function, and I tried to pass it into a route, either an express route. That didn't really work. So that's kind of what I was wondering. Like, how you like you can use the express router object and then make another route.
Yeah, but the route has to call your fetch function.
Yeah.
Your fetch function would return a promise. So it would call your fetch function. So instead of having this like all spelled out here, you know, like the URL and the escaping the term, I would just put that off in another function. Let's see whether it worked, and then I will actually put it off into another function just so we can see. So let's see whether it worked. I made it mad. Oh, I did that commit. So I need to do my start again. Cannot get results. Oh, let me just, Magic 8 Ball. Wait, no. Oh, I think I started my Magic 8 Ball. Okay, that was a problem. Let's, how on earth did I get into Magic 8 Ball? I just don't even want to know. What were we calling this? Fetch, search, iTunes. The Magic 8 Ball was fun, though. I enjoyed that. Okay. Okay, so other than the fact that it's doing literal song.trackname, let's go back and make it do actual song.trackname. Oh, this 4?
Yeah.
It actually seems to be working pretty well, I have to say. Like, it's given me... You don't think so? Let's see. I don't know. Okay. Okay, so awesome. We've got a working app. Let's commit it. Let's see, implement fetch to get data from iTunes and display on page. And so now let's go back and actually separate this out. So I'm going to make a function. I would put this in a different folder, but I've got like 30 seconds. So const fetch iTunes. It's a function that's going to take a term and it's going to return a promise. So let's, I really want all of this stuff to be in here. And I actually want to do then, okay, so now if I do my JS doc, I'm going to fetch iTunes results from iTunes API and return array of song objects. So my param is going to be a string, and that's search term. My return is going to be a promise, and it's going to be resolves to array of song objects. Okay, and so all of this looks fine to me, and I just want to make sure I return this. Now here, I just have to do fetch iTunes term And in fact, I can, yeah, that's fine. Dot then. Because fetch iTunes is returning a promise. So I can do a dot then on it. And now, because I actually got the results up here, this songs really is just the array of songs. What do you think? Should we try it? Let's okay, I gotta go. I've gotten 11 o'clock. But I will make this repo available for people who want to play with it, and then obviously I'll put the recording up.